Okay ji, Assalamualaikum. Welcome everyone. My name is Aisha and I'm Director Industry Engagement at P SHA. और मेरे साथ ज्वाइन किया है साद महबूब ने, ही इज हेड ऑफ डेलीगेशंस एंड प्रोग्राम्स। प्लस हमारे साथ हमारे पाशा के बोर्ड मेंबर हैं आजम अव्वल साहब, और हमारे स्पीकर हैं गेस्ट अरसलान मुश्ताक साहब। ही इज़ अ पार्टनर ऑफ athGADLANG, और उसके अलावा ही हैज़ मोर देन 17 years of experience in working regarding the direct and indirect taxations in the UAE and UK market. तो हम क्विकली इसको स्टार्ट करते हैं, और पहले जो फर्स्ट हाफ है उसके अंदर अरसलान साहब थोड़ा सा आपको एक्सप्लेन करेंगे, प्रेजेंटेशन भी है इनकी। तो आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट कि आप सब अपने माइक्स म्यूट रखिएगा। जब इनका सेशन कंप्लीट हो जाएगा तो देन वी विल अलाउ एवरीवन टू आस्क क्वेश्चंस। आप लोग इंग्लिश में भी बात कर सकते हैं, उर्दू में भी कर सकते हैं, तो वी डोंट हैव एनी प्रॉब्लम विद दैट, जो आपके लिए कन्वीनियंट हो। तो ओवर टू मिस्टर अरसलान
जी। लास्ट में जो क्वेश्चन आंसर का सेशन होगा उसमें हैंड रेस के साथ ही हम क्यू बनाएंगे। जो लोग पहले हाथ खड़ा करेंगे उनको हम पहले मौका देंगे।
जी ठीक है।
थैंक यू जी अरसलान भाई, थैंक यू। अरसलान साहब की स्क्रीन शेयर की वो ऑप्शन खोल दीजिएगा।
जी जी मैं बिल्कुल करता हूँ। थैंक यू सो मच। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आजम साहब आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया for giving us the opportunity to come to the platform and talk to all you guys, give you guys update. ठीक है, तो उसके लिए बहुत बहुत thank you. As ground rules, I would request all of you कि participate as much as you can, ठीक है, और अपने mics जो है वो please mute रखिएगा during all the conversation we have. आप सबको बिल्कुल मौका दिया जाएगा बात करने के लिए, सवाल पूछने के लिए, ठीक है। We have a Q&A session specially derived for that, which will happen at the end of the session, ठीक है। और उसमें आप जो है ना फिर अपने सवाल जो है ना वो प्लीज पूछ सकते हैं। इसके अलावा अगर किसी साथी का जो है while going through this particular slide, if you have a specific question, then please feel free to put it on the chat box, ताकि जो है हमें आपका क्वेश्चन जो है वो ऑलरेडी रजिस्टर कर लेंगे, and then we'll get to the question, ठीक है। So thank you so much. I am now gonna share my screen. Okay, so share screen. आयशा प्लीज आप वो देख सकती हैं कि जो है ना आई थिंक यू हैव मेड मी द होस्ट।
जी स्क्रीन आपकी शेयर हो रही है,
तो
वी कैन सी दैट।
हाँ, वो क्योंकि अब जितने भी लोग वो आ रहे हैं ना इस जूम के ऊपर, तो आई एम सीइंग द नोटिफिकेशंस, वो फिर मुझे सबको इन करना पड़ेगा।
नहीं नहीं, वो हम खुद कर रहे हैं, आप
अच्छा ओके ठीक है, सो आई कैन इग्नोर दैट।
जी जी बिल्कुल
ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच। अच्छा जी, तो everybody, so the plan is I am going to be giving you an overview of the UAE corporate tax. What has happened so far? What are the key highlights? Particularly keeping in mind you guys being able to do the business from here or from Pakistan, that how it is going to impact you guys. We will go through those, and then in the end we will have some key takeaways where we're going to talk about, okay, you as business owners, what are the things you have to do to make sure you are ready, and then us as an organization, then how can we sort of support you in that journey. Overall, I would say I'm going to be talking for, let's say, another 45-50 minutes, and then we'll have our Q&A session, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so this is just our agenda, and then these are the things we're gonna go through. So some of you guys probably already be aware that what has happened so far. So just to do a quick recap in terms of where we are at the moment. So if you remember, the law came in last year, towards the back end of last year. The law was published, and this is where the Federal Decree Law number 47 was issued. Then we had, since then, we had a lot of cabinet decisions or ministerial decisions which have been issued. There are 29 of them, and we're going to be covering some of those later on anyway. And then also we have had explanatory guide which was issued by FTA, giving all the explanation to different chapters and articles we have in the law. So right now, the tax registration is already open. So companies who are already established here, they can go and register themselves for corporate tax. Although there is no specific deadline for you to actually register for corporate tax, so you can do it at any point in time before your return due date is. So just to give you a brief overview, the corporate tax has already started from 1st of June, but it is only applicable for the financial year starting from 1st of June as well. Typically, so apologies, everybody. So what I was trying to explain, that the government has already enacted the law. It is started from 1st of June 2023, and the companies who are whose financial year has already started from 1st of June, they are already in the ambit of corporate tax. लेकिन usually यहाँ पे जो financial years हैं वो 31st December होते हैं most of the companies के, तो उनके लिए corporate tax will start from 1st of January 2024. So keeping in mind the registration and the filing deadline will be 9 months past finishing your financial year. So जो December year ends वाले companies हैं, they will file their first tax return by 30th of September 2025. तो उससे पहले आप जो है ना वो कभी भी register हो सकते हैं. This is just a list of all the cabinet decisions, ministerial decisions, and FTA decisions which has happened so far. Okay, and some of these are very straightforward. Is just trying to explain a particular definition or a particular thing which has been used in the tax law. On the other hand, there are some which are more important and quite detailed, and which we'll be covering in the later on in the session as well. So don't worry about the list. So we're going to be covering all of them anyway, or at least the majority part of them. Okay. So now I think this is something which is going to be important for you guys. So there are two concepts within the tax. One is the permanent establishment and the other one is POIM. POIM is another international rules which has been adopted by UAE. It's not necessarily adopted by all the tax jurisdictions in the rest of the world. Okay, so within the difference between the two is as such that in the POIM, if you have an entity which is based in UAE and also has a subsidiary or a related entity outside UAE, but all the key decisions are being made from the UAE entity, which is considered as a head office. And you will be required to pay taxes in the UAE for that foreign entity as well. Although, yes, there are double tax treaty rules applicable, which I'm going to come down to in a minute, but you will be taxed in UAE for that overseas entity as well. On the other hand, if let's say you have an entity in outside of UAE and you are doing a business in UAE somehow, then you will need to consider whether your PE has triggered or not. And normally PE जो है वो different criteria है, वो आपको assess करना पड़ेगा, देखना पड़ेगा कि आपकी PE जो है वो trigger हुई है या नहीं हुई. And if your PE has triggered, ठीक है, then that means कि आपको उस foreign entity को UAE के अंदर जो है ना वो tax देना पड़ेगा. So this is the main difference between the two. I would imagine a lot of you guys will either have an entity here, which is not necessarily linked with your Pakistan entity or an overseas entity. Then that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be coming under the umbrella of the tax in UAE. You will still have to do your PE test to make sure that it is not triggered, and then you don't end up paying the taxes. This is a very important concept of a branch. If, for example, you are a branch which is set up in UAE of a foreign entity, then the branches by virtue are considered to be part of your main license, or the main entity of which the branch license is for. So right now it is not very clear if, for example, you have a branch license, then how will you actually be registered with FTA? My opinion is that your main entity, whichever country it is in, that entity most likely will have to register in UAE, and then you will have to pay the taxes on the profits of the branch, not the main license as well. Although some of the details is yet to come out on that in terms of what's going to happen, but at least the branch rules are still there. And then you will see that the people will have to pay the taxes based on whatever revenue and income they have earned within UAE. One other thing which is also important, which people will have to take care of in case of the related entities, it's your transfer pricing or arm's length principle. So branch की और main license की जो भी आपस में transactions होंगी, they all will need to be at arm's length. यानी market value पे उसको जो है ना होना पड़ेगा. So this is also something that you need to consider, and you need to have appropriate documentation in place. ताकि tax authority कभी भी आके आपसे सवाल करती है, तो then you will have a proof that we have already done a benchmarking study of particular related party transaction, और ये हमने arm's length का principle जो है वो उस पे apply किया था. So all of this it needs to be done, and then a proper documentation needs to be kept because you will still be subject to UAE corporate tax for a branch in UAE. Okay, free zones, it's also a fundamental part of UAE as an economy as a whole. They play a crucial role in the economy, and within the tax law, what they have said that there are certain exemptions which have been given to the free zones. Although free zone entities will have to fulfill certain conditions, which I'm going to come to in a minute. But then if you talk about the free zone persons as a whole, then there are certain things which you need to take into consideration and you need to know. So अगर तो फ्री जोन पर्सन जो है वो किसी फॉरेन एंटिटी की ब्रांच हो सकता है, बिल्कुल. If a foreign entity has opened up a branch in a free zone, then it will still be considered as a free zone person. However, they will then need to consider if they fulfill the conditions, then they will pay no tax. Otherwise, they will end up paying the tax. There is another qualifying free zone की restriction जो है कि the first profit of $375,000 or $100,000, that is a attracting 0% tax in UAE, regardless of whether you are in a free zone, if you are in a mainland entity. For a free zone entity, there is no threshold. So you will be given no threshold of such. It will only purely be based on whether you qualifying income or non-qualifying income. And then based on that, you will end up paying the tax either at 9% or 0%, depending on which category you fall in. And then the foreign entities who are based outside of UAE, but they have some relationship with a free zone person, then they will need to consider whether they have a POEM established with the entity. And based on that, they may be subject to paying corporate tax for that foreign entity they have outside your UAE. So free zone ke liye, there are, apart from certain other conditions where you will have to keep the substance, where you have to keep the transfer pricing documentation, you will have to do the audits. Apart from those requirements, the free zone income, which is called qualifying income, it's been split into two main categories. So the category number one is if you are dealing with another free zone person, or you are dealing with outside free zone people, outside UAE, as long as you are doing a qualified activity. And I will cover in a second what the qualified activities are. And in addition to that, you can also transact with the mainland entities, but only for qualifying activities. So as long as you are within these limits, then you will still qualify for the free zones, and then you most likely than not, then you will end up paying 0% tax. So like I talk about, what is the qualifying activity then? So the qualifying activity is, it has a long list of activities which are considered to be qualified. For example, if you are doing a trading of goods, if you even distributing the goods or you are manufacturing the goods, they are all considered as qualifying activities. You could be a holding entity, holding investments in other businesses. You can be a logistic entity, and there are some other transactions or activities which are considered to be qualifying activities. And all of those are listed out in the ministerial decision, which you can go and have a look at. In case of services, so those will also be included within that. It depends on the nature of the service as to what service you are providing, and then you still could potentially qualify for 0%, as long as you're not dealing with the mainland entities. There is another important ministerial decision which has been issued, that is to do with the natural persons. So who are coming under the umbrella of natural persons? So there are two mainly categories of these people. So one is your normal individuals, even if they are working as a freelancer, so they will still fall under this category. And there is another license type, which is sole establishment license. For example, जैसे पाकिस्तान में आपके पास single owner licenses जो है ना वो होते हैं, ठीक है? It's very similar to here as well. It's called sole establishments. So sole establishment licenses will be coming under the national person. So within that, what FTA has said that as long as your revenue is below 1 million, then you will not have to register for corporate tax. You don't have to do any filing, and you don't have to pay any taxes. So this is a big relief for some of the businesses. For example, people who are working as freelancers here, some of the other sole establishments which are small businesses. So then those will definitely be exempted, and they don't have to worry about anything, and then they will not be paying any taxes. That also begs the question that कि अगर for example मैं as an individual कहीं से salary income लेता हूँ या मेरे पास कोई property है उसका कोई rental income आती है, ठीक है, और इसके अलावा मेरे पास कोई और other income आती है, ठीक है, तो उसका क्या होगा? So the answer to that is कि you earning any income other than your business income will not be subject to tax. क्योंकि personal tax तो कोई भी नहीं है यहाँ पे, ठीक है? UAE has still not introduced any personal income tax. So that means you will not pay any taxes on your personal income like your salaries, your rental income, or any other income. For example, you are receiving a dividend from another entity in UAE. So those will all be exempted. Then there is another small business relief, which is also very welcoming. And also it's giving a relief to a lot of small businesses in UAE. Although there are some exceptions to it, if, for example, you are part of a MNC, which is required to do a country-by-country reporting, then it will not be applicable to you. If, for example, you are a qualifying free zone person, then this requirement is also not for you. So we are talking about, apart from these two types, then everybody else, whoever fulfills the criteria, then it will be applicable. So the applicability is based on the turnover. So if, for example, a business is making no more than 3 million in a year, then they can apply for this exemption. And they can go back to FTA and basically tell them, okay, guys, I have not made more than 3 million revenue in any financial year, then please give me an exemption. And then you will apply the exemption, and then you will still have to file the return because you will still have to prove to FTA that you are below the threshold, but you will not pay any taxes. There is one thing in the ministerial decision which has also been mentioned in here. It's also very important that it seems like there has been a limit put to it up until 31st of December 2026, and as if this exemption will expire after this date. However, in the explanatory guide and everywhere else, there is nothing which has been mentioned, not even in the law, of putting a limit or a time limit to such exemption. So we yet to see that what's going to happen, but our view is that there will be no restriction on this, and then most likely then you will be able to get the exemption as long as you are below the threshold. So people just need to make sure that switching over between a non-tax period and a taxable period, you just need to make sure that your financial reporting and your accounting records are consistent and you do not make any changes to make it fall below the threshold. Because then you're going to trigger the anti-abuse rules, and then it will have a severe implication in terms of penalties. So this is a very welcoming relief, given the 85% of the businesses in UAE are SMEs. Then they contribute a major portion of the UAE's GDP. So this is a very welcoming move, and then they will not be paying any taxes. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some high level, some of the expenses which are allowed for deductibility. First one is entertainment. So I think when the law came out, they said all entertainment expenses are disallowed. and they will only get the deductibility up to 50%. But now it has been clarified कि आप कोई भी entertainment करेंगे employees related, then you will get the full deductibility. उसमें सिर्फ कुछ चीज़ों को as a taxpayer हमें ख्याल रखना पड़ेगा. We need to make sure there is appropriate documentation kept. उस पे कोई पॉलिसी है हमारी एंड दैट इज आल्सो कंसिस्टेंटली अप्लाइड, ठीक है. और एम्प्लॉय के एक्सपेंस क्लेम्स और वो सारी चीजें जो है ना, दे हैव अप्रोप्रिएट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन बिहाइंड इट. तो एज लॉन्ग एज वी आर टेकिंग केयर ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दीज, देन there should be no objection from FTA for you to be able to claim 100% deductibility. इसके अलावा जो एक और चीज है, that is to do with the owner related expenses. So if there are any compensation paid either directly or indirectly, whether they are fixed or determinable based on a certain criteria or contingent KPI or something like that, then what's going to happen? Then these expenses will actually get not deductibility in the tax books, taxable profits. So for example, let's say I am the owner of a firm and I have a KPIs that if I meet those KPIs, then I will be entitled for a compensation, let's say a bonus, a special bonus or something like that. So those things will potentially become non-deductible because those are being paid to the owner, and also they are contingent based on a performance of me being able to achieve some KPIs. So a lot of those will actually not going to fall under that category. And in addition to that, then as a general rule of thumb, if you are working in a company as an owner, then you will also need to make sure that you comply with the arm's length principle. So, for example, if I'm the owner of the company and I also have a visa in the company, and I am actively involved. So for example, I am taking, let's say I'm running the operations of the business as in the capacity of the operations director as an employee. Then whatever compensation I am getting as a salary, that needs to be at the market value. So for all businesses, they will have to do an assessment for all the transactions with the owners, whether directly or indirectly, that whatever transactions are happening and whether they are at the market value and whether they will be allowed for deductibility or not. So this is also very important thing for you to keep in mind while you are doing an assessment of your individual businesses. Okay, then there is another restriction on a particular expense, which is interest. So that interest has a deductibility restriction. At the moment, what FTA's ministerial decision has clarified that anything to do with your normal finance related loans, whether it's taken from a bank or whether it's taken from a related party, it will have a restriction on the deductibility. So it has a limit of 12 million dirhams. So that's the cap, maximum cap of the interest expense. And also you can only take the deduction for the 75% of the total value. So these are the two restrictions which are there, but then the definition in the law, it's much wider than only the loans or the interest on loans taken from the financial institutions or related parties. So you will also have some other expenses, other interest related expenses. For example, if you have taken a lease for some equipment, for some cars, or any other thing for the business purposes, then your interest deduction limitation rule then will also apply. And then you need to make sure that you are taking that into account, and then you will only take the deduction up to the extent of the allowed deduction. Otherwise, it will not be considered as a allowed expense. Again, in terms of the free zones, then there are certain other things which are to do with the tax losses, because as you probably know, in any international tax rules, if, for example, an entity who is making tax losses, then what do they do with those tax losses? So if you are a standalone entity, then you cannot actually pass on your tax losses to anybody else to be able to take the relief. But if you are part of a bigger group, then you can certainly transfer your tax losses to the other taxable persons within the tax group. The question was in the beginning that whether you'll be able to transfer to one person or more than one person. Then it has been clarified that you can actually transfer to more than one taxable person. The only criteria you need to think about that there is a limitation, and you will only get the allowed deduction up to 75% of the total value. So that's the only criteria you have. Otherwise, there is no other restriction. And then also, if you are an entity whose tax losses are more than 75% of the taxable income, then you will be able to carry, you will have to carry that forward, and then you will only be able to take the relief up to the 75% of the taxable income. And then on the remaining 25%, you will still end up paying the taxes. Tax grouping is also another important factor. What has been clarified, and it is also very much in line with the international rules, that you can create a tax group with the entities as long as they are more than 95% owned by the same people or same shareholder. So as long as you can prove that, then you are allowed to make a tax group. So in any tax group, you will need to see what is the group structure, what does that look like, and also whether you can easily prove the 95% of the shareholding between the two entities. Then you will be able to create a tax group very easily. That also that means then your withholding tax implication will also be applicable. So at the moment, withholding tax is 0%. So that means nobody will be deducting any withholding tax because it's 0%. It's unlike Pakistan, where depending on what type of service you are providing, you will already withhold some tax and then pay to the FBR in advance on behalf of the suppliers. So in here, the rate is 0%, but the responsibility in a tax group case will still be applied to the individual entity level. So they will still be responsible if at any time in future FTA decide to change the rate of withholding tax from 0 to whatever percent, then you will need to make sure that you deduct the appropriate percentage and remit that tax to the tax authority. And then you will be able to take the withholding tax back at the time of filing the return. Foreign tax credits, if, for example, you have an entity based in UAE and they have a foreign subsidiary and they are already paying taxes in that foreign subsidiary's jurisdiction, then you will be able to take the foreign tax credit claims in the UAE. The only restriction is that in the foreign country, if you have paid the tax which is more than 9%, then you will only get the relief up to the extent of 9%, because that's the tax rate in UAE. And anything, if you have paid less than 9% tax in the foreign jurisdiction, then you will have to pay the differential between the 9% and whatever the percentage was in UAE. So that's also you need to take into account if you have multiple businesses, multinational businesses operating from UAE, then you will end up paying the taxes on your worldwide income at 9%, unless you have already paid the taxes in other jurisdictions. There are certain other things which are important. So I think there was a big question around who needs to get their financial statements audited, whether audited financial statements needs to be submitted with the corporate tax return. So now the ministerial decision has clarified that you do not need to get your financial statements audited unless your revenue is exceeding 50 million. In addition to that, the qualifying free zone persons, it is already mandatory for them to get their financial statements audited. So there has been no change for them, and they will continue to get their financial statements audited. In terms of record keeping, it is again very important, and it is in line with all the other tax jurisdictions that you need to have appropriate documentation apt for your tax filings. So for example, some of the documentation, you will need to keep your cash book, you need to keep your credit sales, salary wages registers, any supporting documentation you have taken, you have for your tax return, the calculations, and the underlying records. So all of these will need to be kept. And in addition, any other records which FTA deem that they will be relevant, and you as a taxpayer deem relevant that they will be necessary for you to keep, then those are also need to be kept. So, there is another concept in UAE that you can actually go back to the tax authority and ask for a clarification on any particular, either a topic or a particular scenario within your business, and you can seek a clarification from FTA. And you can ask them to give their interpretation on a particular scenario for you. It helps the taxpayers to make sure that they are not only getting the verdict from the tax authority, and then they know that it is the correct treatment and the correct interpretation of the law as well, and then they don't have to rely on anybody else. However, what they have done is they have introduced a small fee depending on how many clarifications you are seeking. If you are seeking one clarification in one application, then you will end up paying 1,500 as a fee. And if you are seeking more than one clarifications in a single application, then you will end up paying 2,250 dirhams per application. Normally, FTA the response time varies. And I'm telling you based on my experience from a VAT. So in VAT, the official deadline is 40 business days. So that's the time frame which FTA normally takes to respond to you. But sometimes, depending on if FTA need further clarification, they either need to have a discussion to understand what is the scenario, because they are giving an opinion to you as a taxpayer in writing. So that's why they take sometime it takes longer than the prescribed times for them. Okay, in terms of transfer pricing, just to give you very high level, so the transfer pricing rules adopted by FTA or UAE government are similar to what they are internationally. So you have a pillar 2 requirement where you have, if you fall under the pillar 2, then your requirements will be different. And then if, for example, you are falling in that category, then you will need to also keep your master file and a local file. And then within that, you will need to make sure that you have all of the assessments done to make sure that all of your related party transactions are at arm's length and they are done at a market value. There are different methods. I'm not going to go into the details of what are the methods for what type of transaction, but the rules are very much international. And then based on those rules, you can actually do your benchmarking and then determine which method is suitable for you and what sort of market value you will determine for particular transaction. And FTA has also given a sort of flexibility to the taxpayers that if any of the methods you as a taxpayer think that are not applicable, then you can use other method as well. But then, of course, you will have to do more documentation in terms of proving to FTA that why did you use that particular rate and how did you establish the benchmarking for that particular transaction. And just to give you a highlight, people who are in pillar 2, they are already doing country by country reporting. They also have their master file, local file capped. And for all the others, then it depends on which type of business you are and what is your tax group structure. Then you may need to keep a local file or master file or one or the other, or maybe both. It entirely depends. One important thing which is also important to note here, that so far FTA has not published what does the return actually going to look like and what TP disclosures they actually require for each taxpayer to make the tax return. So it is difficult to say that what sort of detailed information FTA will require, but at the same time, there is a limit of 200 million dirhams, which has been put on for the related party transactions. So if you are below that threshold, then you are not required to comply with the transfer pricing rules. However, my opinion is that there will be some sort of disclosure requirements coming from FTA as part of the return filing. And then you will still have to comply with some of the arm's length rules, and then you will still have to disclose those to FTA. So again, keep an eye out on the more clarification, more notification coming from FTA on this, and then make sure you comply with your arm's length principles. Key takeaways for the businesses, what to do. So you as a business need to make sure that your deductible expenditures and non-deductible expenditures are very clearly identified. so that when it comes to doing your tax return eventually, then those are very clear and then you can do the calculation very easily. Withholding tax, it is not applicable at the moment, but later on it might be applicable. So you just need to have your policies and procedures around that already embedded, so that if at any point in time in future, if the government decide to introduce withholding tax, then it's very easy for you to embrace that and then start doing action based on that. Businesses also need to then make sure they assess their tax positions in consultation with the tax advisor, make sure they're going to end up paying, they do appropriate tax planning, whatever is possible, so that their tax exposure is minimized. In terms of documentation, then you also need to make sure that you comply with all the documentation requirements, what we have just gone through. And then so that if you ever get audited in future, then everything is basically there. So how we actually are helping a lot of businesses here. We are doing our tax implementation in 3 phases. So it's a pre-assessment or impact assessment, we're calling it. So where we will get the information from you, and then we'll do the assessment based on all the laws, the ministerial decisions, and then we will tell you, okay, how corporate tax is going to impact you. And then we will help you implement whatever needs to happen based on the outcome of the assessment. And then post implementation, then we will make sure that whatever has been implemented, it's working smoothly. And then we will also run the mock returns for you, so that you get the idea that all the information which is supposed to be flowing through the financial systems, then they are flowing through, and then you are getting all the appropriate information to be able to do the tax return filings. I think that's all I wanted to cover from my side. I know I've taken a lot of time. Now I am happy to take any questions you may have. So Aisha, maybe you can help. I am not sure whether people have already put any questions in the chat bar or not. But if that's the case, then please, I'm happy to answer.
Yes, there are a couple of questions in the chat box. Say Atif Usman ne likha hai, for related party, if the parent company is foreign but the management is same for the group.
For the management is, sorry, what? Is same for the group.
जी.
अच्छा, तो related party के अंदर जो है, you need to make sure कि related party के rules जो हैं, they will apply to the 3 tiers in UAE. And then first you need to identify कि कौन-कौन से वो हैं. And even if you are a foreign entity, you will still have to apply the transfer pricing rules because you are established in UAE.
ठीक है. I think ये मोहम्मद शुएब खालिद का एक question है.
Yeah.
शुएब साहब आप unmute करके आप पूछिए.
अरसलान भाई ये स्लाइड्स बंद कर दीजिएगा.
जी, I just got unmuted. Thank you very much. एक तो ये slides आप share कर देंगे. Thank you very much.
जी बिल्कुल share करेंगे.
So we should be like drop out our emails on the chat box.
आपकी already emails हमारे पास मौजूद हैं, तो we'll email the PowerPoint slide and the recording.
2 quick questions. एक चीज आपने mention की थी कि if you are in services business, for example, we all majority over here are involved in IT business. So आपने कहा था कि as far as you are not dealing with the mainland clients, आपके ऊपर जो टैक्स रिजीम है वो जरा डिफरेंट होगी. एक थोड़ा सा वो एक्सप्लेन कर दें. दूसरा ये है कि रिलेटेड पार्टीज की यहाँ बात हो रही है. रिलेटेड पार्टी मींस द ओनरशिप, कॉमन ओनरशिप, और having an office in country A and having a company in UAE with the same ownership, तो वो कैसे impact करेगी TP पे? जरा ये भी थोड़ा सा explain कर दें।
ओके, ठीक है। तो पहले सवाल का जवाब मैं दे देता हूँ, ठीक है। देखें, जो सर्विस ओरिएंटेड बिजनेसेस हैं, ठीक है, यूएई में अगर तो उनकी कोई एस्टेब्लिशमेंट है ना, तो यू विल हैव टू लुक एट इट फ्रॉम टू एंगल्स। एक तो क्या वो एंटिटी जो यूएई के अंदर एस्टेब्लिश किया है वो मेनलैंड में है या फ्री जोन में है, ठीक है। अगर तो वो मेनलैंड में है, ठीक है, तो देन रिगार्डलेस यू गोना एंड अप पेइंग 9% टैक्स स्ट्रेट अवे, ठीक है। उसमें आपको कोई भी एग्जाम्पशन नहीं मिलेगी अनलेस आप स्मॉल बिजनेस रिलीफ में क्वालिफाई करते हैं अगर। तो मेनलैंड का तो इज वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड, ठीक है। अब आप आ जाए फ्री जोन के अंदर, तो फ्री जोन में आपको 0% अवेलेबिलिटी जो है ना वो बिल्कुल मिलेगी, ठीक है, एज लॉन्ग एज आप जो है ना जो उनका क्राइटेरिया वो फुलफिल करते हैं। अब आपकी जो सर्विसेज हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल आप यूएई में बैठ के, ठीक है, इवन लेट्स से यू डूइंग इट फॉर यूएस, ठीक है, तो बिकॉज यू आर हैविंग अ क्वालिफाइंग इनकम, ठीक है, which is earned outside of UAE, then you will still be eligible for 0% tax, ठीक है। आपकी रिस्ट्रिक्शन जो है ना वो सिर्फ उस वक्त खत्म होगी एलिजिबिलिटी की इफ यू स्टार्ट डीलिंग विद मेनलैंड फॉर अनक्वालिफाइड इनकम, तो उसमें फिर आपके ऊपर डिमिनिमस का रूल लगेगा 5 मिलियन का। तो अगर आप उस 5 मिलियन को फिर भी क्रॉस नहीं करते, यू स्टिल बी ओके। और सॉरी, सेकंड क्वेश्चन आपने पूछा था, सॉरी सेकंड क्वेश्चन भी मैं आंसर कर देता हूँ, रिलेटेड पार्टी वाला। तो अगर फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से कि आप जो है ना एक एंटिटी के ओनर हैं, लेट्स से कि पाकिस्तान में एंटिटी है और सेम पर्सन जो है वो यूएई में भी एंटिटी का ओनर है और उन दो एंटिटी का आपस में कोई कनेक्शन नहीं, ठीक है, दे आर बोथ इंडिपेंडेंटली ओन्ड बट बाय द सेम पर्सन, ठीक है। तो यूएई के पर्सपेक्टिव से अगर एक तो आप आपस में एज ए एंटिटी टू एंटिटी कोई भी ट्रांजैक्शन करेंगे, यू विल स्टिल बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ रिलेटिव पार्टी क्योंकि आपके ओनरशिप सेम है, बेशक आप दोनों आपस में डायरेक्टली जो है ना ओन्ड नहीं है। और इसके अलावा ओनर के साथ कोई भी ट्रांजैक्शन होगी तो दैट विल आल्सो बी कंसिडर्ड एज रिलेटिव पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन। सो दोनों जो है ना वो ट्रांजैक्शन रिलेटिव पार्टी कंसिडर होगी और दोनों ट्रांजैक्शंस पे आपको आर्म्स लेंथ प्रिंसिपल जो है ना मार्केट वैल्यू का लगाना पड़ेगा।
जी, ये आर्किटेक्ट
असलान
007 उन्होंने कोई क्वेश्चन लिखा है, व्हाट आर द बेसिक डॉक्यूमेंटेशन रिक्वायरमेंट्स फॉर अ मेनलैंड कंपनी, कुड यू लिस्ट अ फ्यू?
अच्छा, अब मेनलैंड की एंटिटी के लिए जो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन की रिक्वायरमेंट है वो सबके लिए सेम है। फ्री जोन के लिए मे बी लिटिल बिट एक्स्ट्रा इंफॉर्मेशन रिक्वायर्ड होगी, लेकिन प्रिंसिपली दे आर मोर और लेस द सेम। तो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन में फॉर एग्जांपल सबसे पहले तो आपको अपनी जो टैक्स रिटर्न आप फाइल करेंगे, ठीक है, आपके पास वो होनी चाहिए उसकी, ठीक है, जिसकी बेस पे आपने अपने अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट से यू हैव कम टू द टैक्सेबल प्रॉफिट। तो उसमें जितनी भी एडजस्टमेंट्स की हैं, इसके अलावा जितने भी आपकी डिसअलाउड या अलाउड एक्सपेंसेस हैं उसकी फॉर एग्जांपल आपके पास इनवॉइसेस होनी चाहिए, ठीक है, जितनी आपने रेवेन्यू की हैं उसकी इनवॉइसेस होनी चाहिए। सो द लिस्ट गोज ऑन, यानी देयर इज अ वेरी लॉन्ग लिस्ट। तो आप यूं समझेंगे इनडायरेक्ट और डायरेक्ट टैक्स में आपके मोर और लेस डॉक्यूमेंटेशन की रिक्वायरमेंट इज गोइंग टू बी द सेम। डायरेक्ट टैक्स में सिर्फ डिफरेंस ये है कि आप मोर ड्रिवन बाय द अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट्स, क्योंकि वहां से आप फिर जो है टैक्सेबल प्रॉफिट अपना कैलकुलेट करते हैं। तो वहां से ए से बी तक अराइव करने में आपको जो भी एडजस्टमेंट पड़ेंगी सबके सब आपको जो है ना उसकी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन अपने पास रखनी पड़ेगी।
जी, आसिम साहब आप कुछ कह रहे थे उस वक्त?
जी, असलान भाई मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है, मुझे ये बताइएगा कि जो विद होल्डिंग टैक्स जीसीसी कंट्रीज में कटता है
जी जी,
वो यूएई में एडजस्टेबल है या नहीं है?
देखिए जो जीसीसी कंट्रीज में विद होल्डिंग टैक्स आपका कटता है ना, ठीक है, उसमें अभी तो आपके पास, क्योंकि यहाँ पे तो कोई टैक्स था नहीं, ठीक है, तो अभी आपको कोई भी डिडक्टेबिलिटी कहीं पे भी नहीं मिलती। आप डिपेंड करते हैं कि आप जीसीसी में, फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से कि सऊदी की बात करते हैं, तो क्योंकि सऊदी के साथ यूएई की डबल टैक्स ट्रीटी है, ठीक है, और अगर आपने वहां पे कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स आने के बाद आप विद होल्डिंग टैक्स कटवाएंगे तो आपको यहाँ पे टैक्स क्रेडिट मिलेगा।
मिलेगा उसमें।
जी
अच्छा ठीक है। आतिफ उस्मान का एक है चैट बॉक्स में, आयशा जरा देखिएगा, मैसेज आया।
जी जी। एक तो खैर ये उससे पहले मोहम्मद बिलाल ने लिखा था, सो बेसिकली देयर आर टू कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स रेट्स, 9% फॉर इनकम एक्सीडिंग AED 375,000, sorry I'm very bad with numbers, and 0% below that. ये उन्होंने पूछा है कि इज इट ट्रू?
जी जी, उसमें बिल्कुल ऐसा ही है कि आप मेनलैंड एंटिटी हैं अगर, ठीक है, और आपका प्रॉफिट जो है फर्स्ट 375,000 पे आपको फिर भी 0% टैक्स पड़ेगा। एनीथिंग मोर देन दैट आप उस पर फिर 9% टैक्स देंगे।
लेकिन इस केस में आपको जो है वो रिटर्न सब नहीं जमा कराना है।
जी जी, रिटर्न तो सबने जमा कराना है, एब्सोल्युटली।
रिटर्न सब नहीं जमा कराना है, ठीक है। अच्छा
रिटर्न तो जो इवन स्मॉल बिजनेस रिलीफ भी क्लेम करेगा ना 3 मिलियन वाली, उसको भी रिटर्न सबमिट करानी है।
ठीक है। अच्छा, आतिफ उस्मान साहब ने चैट बॉक्स में उन्होंने क्वेश्चन लिखा है कि कोई रिकॉर्ड टाइम
एनी
लिमिट है,
रिकॉर्ड्स टाइम
रिकॉर्ड्स
लिमिट?
रखने?
जी जी बिल्कुल, रिकॉर्ड की टाइम लिमिट जो है दैट इज 7 ईयर्स।
7 years, ठीक है।
फहद को
जी,
भी कोई क्वेश्चन
जो कि
पूछना? फहद
वेरी
म्यूट
मच
है।
इन लाइन विद इंटरनेशनल लॉज है कि 7 ईयर्स इज वेरी नॉर्मल।
ओके।
जी फहद आप पूछें।
Ji, Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Azam and Aisha, for organizing such a wonderful topic. Arsalan Sahab, it's been very great to see your slides and your experience in UAE and other GCC regions. Quick question. I'll keep it simple. Let's say if I have a payment coming from Qatar and I'm also billing someone in Abu Dhabi. So I'm assuming payment from Qatar will not be taxable, and the one in Abu Dhabi will be taxed at 9%, right?
So you are basically doing a transaction 3 ways. So Cayman Island to Qatar and Qatar to Abu Dhabi.
Not Cayman, Qatar. मतलब एक कस्टमर हमारा कतर में है, एक बहरीन में है, तो उनको हम बिल कर रहे हैं। और एक हमारा मेनलैंड, जी जी, यूएई से, और एक हमारा अबू धाबी में। तो अबू धाबी वाला तो टैक्सेबल होगा 9%। ठीक है।
अच्छा, उसमें देखें ये है कि नॉट नेसेसरीली कि अबू धाबी वाला जो है उस पे आपको 9% टैक्स देना पड़ जाएगा, ठीक है। जो कतर एंड बहरीन वाला है, मोस्ट लाइकली एज लॉन्ग एज यू फुलफिल द कंडीशंस, ठीक है, तो आपको वहां पे तो 0% एग्जेम्पशन मिल जानी चाहिए, ठीक है। और जो अबू धाबी वाला है वो भी आपका क्वालिफाइड इनकम में आता है, और आप अगर क्वालिफाइड इनकम में रहते हैं तो फिर आपके ऊपर जो है ना वहां पे भी आपको 9% का टैक्स नहीं देना पड़ेगा। और अगर वो क्वालिफाइड इनकम में फॉर एग्जांपल नहीं फॉल करता तो फिर भी आपके पास 5 मिलियन की लिमिट है। तो अगर एज लॉन्ग एज आप 5 मिलियन से क्रॉस नहीं करेंगे तो देन यू एंड 5 मिलियन इज ऑन रेवेन्यू, ठीक है, तो देन यू विल स्टिल बी फाइन। बट देन in that case, if it's unqualified income, you will end up paying tax on your mainland unqualified income.
मतलब अबू धाबी वाले पे देना पड़ेगा, और जो बाहर से आ रही है कतर या बहरीन से, उस पे नहीं देना होगा। थैंक यू वेरी मच, शुक्रिया।
ओके, ये आरटेक 007, आप प्लीज अगर डायरेक्टली अपना क्वेश्चन पूछ लें, कि आपने 3 क्वेश्चंस पूछे हैं, तो इट वुड बी रियली गुड कि डायरेक्ट आप अगर क्वेश्चन अपना पूछें।
मैं एक्सप्लेन कर देता हूँ। He wanted to know कि जिस तरह से पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो है वो एक लॉ है कि 6 years गुजरने के बाद आपके रिटर्न के ऊपर आपके कोई ऑडिट नहीं खोल सकता उसमें ना। 6 year का एक आपको कैप दिया हुआ है कि 6 साल से पीछे चले जाते हैं तो फिर कोई छेड़ता नहीं है आपको। तो समथिंग लाइक इस तरह की कोई चीज जो है वो यूएई कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स लॉ में है कि आप 5 साल तक टैक्सेबल ऑडिटेड
अभी जो मैं 7 इयर्स की लिमिट बता रहा था वो यही थी।
अच्छा, तो वो रिकॉर्ड रखना जरूरी है, और 7 ईयर तक जो है वो ऑडिट भी हो सकता है उसका।
तो
7 साल के बाद
आपके
फाइल।
पाकिस्तान में 6 है और यहाँ पे 7 है, तो बस 1 साल का फर्क है।
ओके।
लेकिन उसमें सिर्फ यहाँ पे जो है ना वो एक चीज उसमें ओवरराइड जो है ना वो कर देते हैं लॉ वाले को। वो कहते हैं कि अगर फॉर एग्जांपल टैक्स अथॉरिटी को ये सस्पिशन हो कि आपने फ्रॉड किया है या आपने टैक्स इवेजन किया है, तो देन दे कैन इवन गो बैक फर्दर एंड ओपन योर टैक्स ईयर्स, बेशक वो यानी बाय लॉ बंद भी हो गए हों।
अच्छा, लेकिन पाकिस्तान में तो मेरे ख्याल है 2 साल की एक्सटेंशन दी गई थी ना, 5 से 7 किया गया था।
तो यहाँ पे यानी वो ऐसा जो उस पे कोई जो है ना वो लिमिट नहीं लगाई होगी।
ठीक है। I think it was very nice, knowledge transfer from your side, a very valuable knowledge transferring session from your side. Aisha, I think you can close this
जी
webinar.
बिल्कुल। आज़म साहब, आपका भी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने स्पेशली टाइम निकाला और यू हैव हेल्प मी इन कोऑर्डिनेटिंग ऑल दिस सेशन। तो सब
Thank
लोगों
you.
की ईमेल एड्रेसेस ऑलरेडी हमारे पास हैं। वी विल शेयर द रिकॉर्डिंग एंड द प्रेजेंटेशन विद यू इन ईमेल। तो स्टिल अगर आपके कोई क्वेश्चंस होंगे तो अरसलान साहब आप अपना ईमेल आईडी शेयर कर सकते हैं।
मेरा ईमेल आईडी जो है ना वो प्रेजेंटेशन में शेयर करूंगा ना, उसके अंदर
ठीक
है
है, सही।
ऑलरेडी।
वो फिर मैं
अगर
आगे शेयर कर
लोग अभी
दूंगी।
नोट करना चाहते हैं तो आई कैन क्विकली पुट इट अप ऑन द
जी,
स्क्रीन एज
आप
वेल।
चैट में डाल दें ताकि अगर किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन रह गया हो तो वो रीच आउट करें।
हाँ ओके, ठीक है। वैसे तो एक ये भी ईमेल आईडी है जिसपे लोग जो है ना दे कैन पुट देयर क्वेश्चंस इफ दे वांट डायरेक्टली रीच टू मी। ठीक है, तो आई एम जस्ट पुटिंग इट इन द चैट। तो दिस इज आल्सो माय डायरेक्ट ईमेल आईडी, तो आप दोनों में से किसी पे भी ईमेल कर दें तो भी ओके।
ठीक है जी, जबरदस्त हो गया।
ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच एवरीवन, थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग अस। अरसलान साहब आपका बहुत शुक्रिया।
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर द अपॉर्चुनिटी।
थैंक यू भी एवरीवन। असलान भाई, खास तौर पे उस्मान भाई को बहुत बहुत थैंक यू कीजिएगा। आपके
जरूर।
पार्टनर हैं, हमारे बड़े अच्छे दोस्त हैं, उन्होंने हमें अकोमोडेट किया। एंड वी आर वेरी थैंकफुल टू आवर लिसनर्स एज वेल, जिन्होंने जो है वो इस सेशन को जो है अटेंड करके हमें एक बहुत अच्छा जो है वो बूस्ट अप दे दिया है, एक एनर्जी प्रोवाइड की है, सो दैट वी कैन अरेंज मोर सेशंस लाइक दिस। और इंशाल्लाह ताला आई होप कि आयशा जो है वो 1-2 दिन में जो है थ्रू ईमेल अनाउंस कर देंगी कि इसकी जो रिकॉर्डिंग है वो यूट्यूब पे कहाँ पे अवेलेबल होगी।
जी
थैंक यू सो मच एवरीवन, थैंक यू, खुदा हाफिज़।